pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence, and as we do, if we could keep in our thoughts and prayers, Alice Friedel and her family. She passed away last week, a woman who was a registrar here for years and years. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded and televised by the local cable company. Approval of bill and payroll warrants. A motion, please.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
So moved.
Is there any discussion?
Second.
Is there a second discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Approval of meeting minutes, open session, September 7th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? Okay, so is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain on that one. Open session, September 13th, 18th? I can't read it. 13th, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And tonight, the first order of business is a promotional ceremony in the Whitman Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Service Department. We're here to appoint Jason Mahoney captain, and that's why we're all here. And if I could ask the town clerk to do the honors.
He's got something to say. So.
Pardon?
The chief first.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Chief.
Good evening to the Honorable Board of Selectmen, Town Administrative, members of Whitman Fire Rescue, and to all of our friends and family who have gathered here this evening for the swearing in of Jason Mahoney. Jason began his fire service career in 2002 as a firefighter paramedic for the town of Hanson. In 2008, Jason became a firefighter paramedic for the town of Whitman. Since that time, Jason has a master's degree in public administration. He's also a registered nurse. Jason has attended multiple fire academy classes, is Pro Board certified in Fire Officer 1 and up to Instructor 2. Jason has always taken every advantage of every opportunity to seek education to become a better firefighter and a better leader. Jason is married to his wife Christina, and they're accompanied tonight by his two twin daughters, Haley and Ryan, and they currently live in Hanson. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, friends, family, and Whitman Fire Rescue, Captain Jason Mahoney.
You need to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jason E. Mahoney,
I, Jason E. Mahoney,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
promise to uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
and the bylaws of the town of Whitman.
I promise to bring to my profession
I promise to bring to my profession
a standard of quality and integrity,
a standard of quality and integrity,
so that the conduct of my affairs in my office
so that the conduct of my affairs in my office
shall be above reproach
shall be above reproach
and merit public confidence.
and merit public confidence.
In the position of captain on the Whitman Fire Department,
In the position of captain at Whitman Fire Department,
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
I promise to uphold such laws and bylaws
to which the office of captain may be subject.
to which the office of captain may be subject.
I, Jason E. Mahoney,
I, Jason E. Mahoney,
do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
that I will perform the duties incumbent upon me
as captain for the town of Whitman
as captain for the town of Whitman
in good faith and the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
Help me God.
Congratulations, sir. you want to come back here, your wife and your daughter would love to come up and put your pin on. Both of you, love.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world in the new position, and people are welcome to stay here as long as you'd like to congratulate the new captain, and we unfortunately have to go upstairs and do more stuff. But this is the best part of the night. Thank you very much.
Let's get you in there. Yeah.
To assume we dispensed with the public forum process, and there have been some questions about whether or not we want to bring it back, and I suggested that we think about it and discuss it. Only issue I see with bringing it back is that we have to make sure that we still observe the open meeting law. People should know what we're going to be discussing and acting upon each week in advance when they get an agenda. On the other hand, people ought to be, there ought to be a way for them to discuss things with us that aren't on the agenda, as long as they understand the way I'd see it, and tell me if I'm wrong, as long as they understand that no action, no meaningful discussion will happen around that topic the night that they bring it up. They could be asked to, we'll have a public forum, we ask if anybody wants to talk about anything not on the agenda. If anybody wants to do that, they may do that, but they'd basically be introducing something that we would put on the agenda if we decide to within the next couple of meetings. Does that make sense to you all, or what?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the school committee had a very meaningful discussion about this topic back at the beginning of September, where they basically came to the same conclusion. It's still valuable to allow members of the public to come and address the board. However, you just have to keep in mind open meeting law. You cannot, we won't be discussing it among ourselves or voting on this topic at that meeting. So I think we're right in line with what a fellow board considers the right thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, again, I think we should be aware of what questions will be asked by the public if it's on the agenda. If it's something differently, we may not have an answer for them. And I think that if, in fact, if they notify the Selectmen's office and saying, look, on public comment, I'd like to discuss A, B, and Z, A, B, C, we'll be aware, our town administrator will be aware. We can contact us, and we can research it and be prepared for an answer to solve an issue that they may have.
Yeah, the only issue I have with what you just said, Dan, was that it still would be a surprise to the people that tune in, that come to the meetings, that tune into the meetings on that night. That's what we're trying to avoid. We want people to know when we have an agenda that these are the things we're going to be discussing and talking about. Like I said, no problem with the people coming forward, just as long as they're under the understanding that we're not going to have any meaningful discussion or decide any actions on that particular night. It'll happen later on.
Right.
Of course, what someone could do, you know, if they knew what they wanted to talk about or ask questions about or had a problem with, if they knew what they were, all they need to do is to contact the Selectmen's office and ask to be put on the agenda.
Absolutely.
And then they're put on the agenda.
Yes.
Open forum is kind of a way of, I don't know, welcoming people to our to our group.
Yeah.
So,
Plus, I think it allows people, if they have an issue and we're not aware of it, they can call the selectman's office, we can put it on the agenda, they can be here, explain the issue, and we can deal with it.
yeah, well, then there's no need for that. Yeah, but that's not public forum. Public forum is
Well, yeah, true.
something more ad hoc. We just have to treat it gently, that's all. Randy, you got anything to say?
I don't have any problem with it, as long as just the board's aware that the open meeting violation comes at the point we start deliberation over any topic, and so we can control it. And
Okay,
I
good.
think,
Then the next meeting, it'll be on the open forum will be on the agenda the way it was before. We'll announce it the way it was before, and we'll just expect that people observe the proprieties.
And if it gets out of hand or something, that's what the gavel's for.
I just thought of something. When I said observe the proprieties, I reminded myself of Barry Fitzgerald in The Quiet Man by John Wayne. Observe the proprieties at all times. That wasn't an ethnic Irish brogue slur, I don't think, I hope. No, it wasn't. I'm half Irish. Okay, and I think I saw Ms. Donna here.
Does everyone have a copy?
They do.
Thanks.
So we're looking for a strategic planning update. In particular, it's going to happen on October 23rd. How do we get there? What's going to happen that day? What about?
They want to table.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Get unmasked here. Greetings. Thanks for inviting me this evening. Good to see you all. So the question was, what is going to happen on the 23rd? And I wanted to sort of just give you some context about what, prior to the, where the 23rd fits in the strategic planning process. So essentially, I've talked to a lot of people and I've done a lot of reading, and that really kind of sets the stage, for me, in order to be helpful to the town of Whitman, to provide that context, but also to share, some of the high-level findings from those discussions that I've had. But the 23rd is really, there's two parts to it. One part is focused, so I'm just going to show you. I'm looking at this chart, and on this chart, it shows Phase 2, which is the strategy development and assessment, and that's where we're at. And then following that is Phase 3, which is really developing and articulating mission, vision, values, and priorities, and providing a framework for the town over the next 5 years. So on the 23rd, we are going to, first I mentioned, mission and vision, is that part of that, half that meeting is really focused on articulating the town's mission, defining and prioritizing a range of, I call them overarching strategic priorities, and to think about, in achieving those priorities, what is the result of those priorities, or what are the outcomes of those priorities? And then to make sure that as we establish those priorities, they're really rooted in mission, vision, and values. Okay, so that the mission, vision, and values really provides, if you will, a North Star to inform what those strategic priorities are, because they must satisfy mission, vision, and values. So on this page, which is the agenda, it's an outline of an agenda. I wanted to just, again, give it sort of high level. So the morning session is really focused on that, because it's difficult and not recommended to develop sort of those strategic priority areas without establishing that. So that's the first half of the strategic, well, not quite half, but the morning is really developing and coming up with the language that people feel captures what the town of Whitman stands for, and what are our values as a town, what defines us, and what our vision is for the future of the town of Whitman, for the town. And there's an exercise that I will sort of facilitate to help us do that. So sometimes the concern is, it's like, well, how do several people wordsmith or come up with that, or do we just deliberate around a table? Well, part of it is that there's a technique and a strategy to develop that, so it isn't we're looking at a blank piece of paper and thinking, well, what do you think? What do you think? It's not like that. It's really trying to go through a very specific activity that brings us to that point. The wordsmithing or the fine-tuning of that can happen after the retreat, but that sort of gets us started. So I just wanted to discuss that part and ask if there's any questions about that first part of the meeting.
No, it's a great solace to know that we're not just sitting there with a blank piece of paper and.
Oh yeah, no,
and throwing stuff
that's
against
real.
the
I
wall.
don't think anybody could do that very well. It's very difficult. And then the second half of the retreat is to really is to look at the what do we call the fact base. And again, as I think I said before, you have a lot of the facts, but to sort of color it with other insights that have come through my discussions with you and the school committee and the department heads to kind of bring into that conversation. And to identify which emerging themes from those conversations and emerging themes from the data set. And then based on that, we're sort of building sort of this iterative process. We've got mission, vision, values. We've got our fact base. We've identified challenges and opportunities that, for the town, emerging themes. Then that's the point where we start thinking about, well, what are the strategic priority areas? And if you think of it as an outline, is that you have the top of the outline is those chapters of those strategic initiatives. It's not like down to the detail, because the detail of achieving those strategic priorities is incumbent upon everybody to deliver on those in their capacity, either as an elected official, as a department head, and that we're all rowing in the same direction. And many of those priorities, and I'm going to show you some examples in a minute, overlap. So even though you think that, well, I do this and I don't, I kind of stay in my lane and I don't move into another, it's narrowly defined, is that oftentimes everything that we all do contributes to all those strategic priorities, even though if it doesn't seem that. So every department, everybody has a role to play in achieving those. And then the other important part of identifying strategic priorities is to really have a sense that each strategic priority has its own little mission or vision, is that, well, what's the end result? Because if we do that, what's going to look like in 5 years if we achieve that? So that's a really important, there's an end point for each of these, and particularly when you're looking at a 5-year horizon. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So on the pages that I sent you, I sent some examples because I thought these were good examples. One to show what a mission, vision, and value statements look like. And one of the most important things I hope this shows is they're all a little bit different, but they capture the same elements that are important to guide that strategic vision for a town. So the first one, says that very simply that this strategic plan includes a new mission, vision, and set of values for the city of Union City, and these were developed through collaborative discussions in our strategic planning process. And so they have a mission, and our mission is to create and provide effective quality services that foster high quality of life and economic vitality. So that's an example of a really good mission statement. And I'll say it's good because it's one sentence, and you can understand that. And then the citywide vision, and a vision is sort of the future state, to be a vibrant, inclusive, prosperous community where residents and businesses thrive and innovation grows. So that's like the mission and vision. Vision is like the future aspirational goal. And then they also have an organizational vision that's not required, but some, again, they're a little bit different. And they also have organizational values. And their values are sustainability and plan for the long term in all that we do to ensure financial, environmental, and community well-being. And then accountability is another organizational value, which is serve as responsible stewards of public resources and trust. So that's an example. On the next page, there's another version. This is from the city of Fort Collins, and they have a vision. They show quite in this nice little diagram. Vision, mission, and values are interconnected. It's a Venn diagram. Their vision to provide world-class municipal services through operational excellence and a culture of innovation, and mission is exceptional service for an exceptional community. Now that's a really good mission. Values, outstanding service, innovation and creativity, respect, integrity, initiative, collaboration and teamwork, and stewardship. And for many organizations, in the private sector, oftentimes you'll see mission, vision, and values posted prominently throughout an organization. So everybody, it's like we remind ourselves like what we're doing and what direction we're going in. And then on the last page, I thought this was good, a good example, because what they show is, I described those strategic priorities, or strategic, you could call them strategic imperatives. Some organizations call them strategic pillars, because again, they sort of, they kind of hold up, and they are the areas that we are focusing on and that sort of sustain our planning. And so they have their vision statement, they have their values, they have their vision, but they also, their strategic priorities are citizen service and relationships. And then under that, they describe what the initiatives are under each of those themes. If you don't mind, I'm going to read out loud so people watching can, understand what this is about. So, in that bucket, under that pillar, under citizen service and relationships, their initiatives are provide resource efficiency and citizen stewardship choices, implement and utilize emerging technology citywide, promote employee safety and citizen responsiveness. So that's under that category. The next category they have is economic development. And the initiatives they have include create comprehensive city development plan, define a city brand, enhance economic development efforts. Some of those are a little broad, and so if you think about what are the tactics, specific tactics under those initiatives or those tactics can fall under each part of government to develop those tactics. So an example would be under economic development, it could be that that there's an understanding of zoning and planning, or applying for grants, available grants for smart transit, et cetera, that the things fall under each of these categories. Under infrastructure, continued timely and prudent investment in infrastructure, kind of broad, I would say, and not as crisp as citizen service and relationships, but you can sort of see where I'm going with this. They're very specific sort of, let's call them action steps that, like, what are those high-level tactics that we were going to do to achieve that. And then under financial stability, ensure long-term financial strength and home rule preservation. So but each strategic plan, each municipality, each organization can think of the sort of strategic themes in a myriad of ways, but the sort of the format and the way it works is all very similar.
Thank you. And then you're asking for questions. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question. So, to get the most productive planning session on October 23rd, who else should we be inviting to this meeting besides us, Whitman School Committee members, maybe members of the public, department heads, or are we getting too big?
Well, I think that, the number of participants shouldn't matter. If it's 100 people, that's a lot of people. That whoever you would like to invite and participate, there's a way to participate, and through, so for example, the way that it's organized sometimes is based on the number of participants, but it's also the goal of it is to make sure that everybody has a voice and everyone contributes at each part of the meeting, which kind of brings us up to developing those strategic themes. Okay. So the process allows for a variety of participants representing different stakeholder groups.
Okay.
How do you envision we'll be doing it in the auditorium downstairs, I imagine? Do you envision a set of tables with X number of people at it, and
right.
we share the results of our discussions at those tables?
Absolutely, and oftentimes there's guiding questions depending on the number of people. So, for example, let's say there's 40 people. I'll use that as an example, and usually you try to have a group that's small enough that everyone can sort of participate and be part of the discussion, and the questions, almost let's think of them as tasks that are worked on, provide really facilitate that kind of back and forth and discussion. And the exercisers are meant to, kind of the summary and the report out, and then there's a larger group. So there's oftentimes breakout around tables, and then sort of a report out to the larger group, and a lot of the comments and ideas are captured, either on a tablet, on a screen, or just old-fashioned flip chart paper.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
As you know, we have a regional school district. So to just come up with Whitman's strategic plan for that school district really is only including half the team. So how would you recommend integrating either the Hanson School Committee members or Hanson officials, or would that be better if they were their own breakout meeting? I just see,
Yeah.
I see a complete conflict that we go ahead and establish something that works for Whitman, but it really isn't a strategic plan for education for the regional school district.
No, that's an excellent question. One of the things that I think would be a critical piece of information going into the session, and perhaps suggested reading, is the recently completed strategic plan that the school district has developed. And that, so for example, one of the questions that we might want to talk about is, should the under the strategic pillars, do the schools have their own strategic theme, or does that fit within another theme, knowing that the school district has their own strategic plan, and to make sure that that what Whitman develops is in alignment with, I think that the school committee, how many years is that? Is that a 5-year plan? I'm trying to.
so, yes.
Yeah, 5-year plan, and they just, and I know that there were subcommittees over the summer working out some of the details, but that would be an important fact base as we discuss the data that we're working with to develop the plan, to make sure that we are in alignment with what that school district plan is, so they're not like two different documents. Does that make sense? I mean, do you see, for example...
It does
yeah.
make sense if the town's financial plan is in line with their plan, where we've struggled with that and still hasn't, unfortunately, even through this, will not be addressed, that we run parallel roads, but financially, we're not in the same place. And unfortunately, that was kind of my worry going into this. And
So,
although it's good work, I just don't see us, the ultimate goal, addressing that somehow.
well, let me sort of reframe it, the thinking, and sort of applying kind of this thinking to it. So, for example, a strategic priority, I'm making this up, I'm not, putting my finger on the scale, is Whitman's, relationship or financial stewardship, whatever you want to call it, and it's very specific to the public schools, to the regional school district. And so that's a strategic theme, is the statement could be, think of a statement, right? Strengthening, financial sort of management of, between Whitman, like that, or having a strong school district is paramount to what we want. And then perhaps, again, I'm making that up, I'm not saying that's what it is, I'm just giving you a heading. And those initiatives underneath that theme could include very specific actions that would need to happen in order to achieve that. So we could have, for example, there could be a strategic priority which has to do with the schools, and then the town's role in the schools. And that there could be, whether it's meetings or there's subcommittees or those very specific activities to be able to achieve that strategic vision for that particular piece. So as we develop and we think about what these themes are, pillars of the plan, that it's flexible. And what we establish, or what the town establishes for the next 5 years, it doesn't necessarily mean that the next plan is going to have the same strategic themes. This is for 5 years. We're looking at a 5-year window, so those strategic priorities are going to be for what we're facing now and for the next 5 years. So does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a comment. When we have this meeting, if we have all the different departments there, each department has their own actually 5-year strategic plan, if not written in their brain, and their needs. And I think once we establish a 5-year plan on all department needs and all, let's say all town needs, I want to put it that way, the main town needs, then we have to come up with a financial strategic plan in order to deal with that. And of course, the answer is always, increase taxes or do an override or a debt exclusion, whatever. But sometimes the people make a decision on that, and they have to decide what's more important. I think the residents of Whitman feel like, I think they like this town. I mean, we have great departments, right? They take care of the town. But yes, there are needs that we have. I mean, roads, whatever. Certain buildings that need to be updated. And I think once we establish a plan, financial plan needs to go right along with it to say, how do we deal with some of the issues that the residents of Whitman would prefer to be dealt with. So that's my-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the implementation, but the strategic plan provides a common understanding of what those priorities are, based on the facts, what we know, and implementation guides how, for example, a department head might be thinking about their budget, but it's not telling them what their budget is. One of the things that I want to stress is that the department heads, because these are larger categories, and that there are initiatives that everyone's going to have a hand in sort of identifying, that within the sort of the control that department heads have over their budget and their how they deploy their resources, that they're thinking, well, what is my department's responsibility toward that end? I mean, in addition to what we do.
It's a good thought, yeah.
One of the things that's critical about the vision is that it's shared by all of the people that are involved in the operation. I had a boss once who wrote a book called The Shared Vision, and that he used to use that phrase all the time. And to kind of tackle what Randy was talking about too, that the vision that the schools have, and they've come up with a plan prior to our writing a plan. Part of their goal needs to be, as ours has to be, is to find out how, if those two visions are separate in any way, how they can be shared by each. How cooperation can occur. So that the impetus here has to be on sharing, on people coming together, and basically that means coming together and agreeing on something. And then, as you said, you plaster it on walls all around your buildings, and people are constantly aware of those things. But it is going to be tricky when the largest part of your operation has its own strategic vision or the strategic plan prior to yours, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens. Anything else?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just briefly touch on something that Selectman Evans brought up and Selectman Salvucci touched on, just to be sure that we have the right folks in the room. Per our previous conversations, we're talking about having the members of the Board of Selectmen there, the Whitman members of the Joint Regional School Committee, department heads who are available on that day, don't have some previously scheduled engagement on that Saturday, and then having a somewhat limited number of interested members of the public who could self-identify and and ask to be part of it. So there's the open question about having the Hanson members of the school committee there or not, but I just want to make sure that the right people are in the room there for whom the board wants. So is that, I don't know, can I get some feedback on that, I guess is the question. I just want to make sure that they know what's going on, who we would like to have there.
There has to be enough publicity so that those citizens who might be interested in engaging in this conversation over a long period of time on a Saturday know about it. I'm not sure that's happened yet.
There have been some members of the public who've expressed interest in participating, and we can.
And there's some members of the public who you would expect to show an interest who didn't know about it,
right?
Which might have meant they were like off in Hawaii during the last 3 months or something, but whatever.
Sure.
We do need to make sure that we reach out enough so that enough interested people are here. They'd be here at the meeting if they're interested, but we need to get a lot of feedback.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's not a vision that's shared with the town. Otherwise, it's something that a small group of people come up with.
Well, I think once we have the meeting, and I'm hoping I can attend because I will be on my way back from Myrtle Beach, but once we have the meeting, we'll know what the interest of the townspeople, what their main interests are, and our department heads. And then the next step is to plan on implementing those needs. It's that simple. I mean, we've already had a meeting where people have written in exactly what they wanted: great police, great fire, great schools. We've had that. We know what they want, but there's other areas that they may want: better roads, streets and roads and things like that, which we're working on. So, I mean, there's always needs in a town, especially in a small town. But the fact that if we put together a 5-year plan, and even if we do the first 5-year plan, and if we only established or get 4 years of it, that last 5th year could be the first year of the next 5 years. It's almost like a domino effect where we learn what we've accomplished and how to accomplish it, and we just keep going forward.
And there's, and there are other plans also. A good plan is also flexible, and things change. There's factors that change, and life happens with all the best of intentions, so that happens. To the question about, and I know it wasn't a question for me, but engaging people from the public and opinions, another way to look at it is to develop a strategic, it's a draft of a strategic vision, and to invite comment and to post it, and to solicit feedback on that. And it can, then there could be like a subcommittee or a group that could continue to work on that. So that's another way of, it's not final for people who can't come, but who have some thoughts about the language and the sort of what was developed.
You putting your hand up?
Yeah, I'm putting. I would. So I'm going to make a sports analogy here. You go and watch the Patriots game on a Saturday. Bill Belichick has put his team together, and the public now buys into what Belichick has put on the field for a winning team. I mean, how many people are we going to get from the public? We're going to have Sean again. We're going to have the 3 or 4 other individuals that, have shown interest in this. I think we've already gone out, we've done a survey. For me, I'm slightly disappointed because I actually thought we were a little beyond this, that we were actually going to implement a plan, that we were beyond the fact-finding, and we did that with the survey.
You did.
So when are we going to actually get the team together and develop a plan? And that's what I thought this retreat would be the most beneficial. If I was going to do it, I would say selectmen, school committee members, our department heads, and the chairs of our individual boards. And that's how you get your shared vision. If you get those key team players now out downselling what you've already established. But at some point, the pen has to go to paper, and we have to establish a plan. And I don't know. I'm worrisome that we just have another day where we have determined we want good schools, fire, police, and roads. And we already know that. I mean,
Right,
I
you do
look
know
at
it.
this snapshot, and I would say, let's just substitute Westerville for Whitman, and I was hoping we'd actually come up with a little bit more than that at the end of this, that, I think it was the Army had the mission, be all you can be. Well, behind that is a technical plan to be all you can be, and that's what I want to know is when are we actually going to get to the technical plan part of it?
Well, the way I envision it, it'd be the second part of the day on Saturday anyway, when you start developing tactics to...
Right, exactly.
deal with
Like,
it
what are the, what are we going to do? As I said, these are examples, and that first we have to agree, like, what the, there's the survey, there's the data. You're right. There's a lot of data. The additional data is what people have, what this group has said, what this, Whitman representatives on the school committee have said, what the department heads, their input, which isn't reflected in the, in the citizen survey, and the actual, it's up to who's ever in that room to develop that plan. So, but I just want to differentiate between the initiatives, like what we're going to do toward that, and when we're going to do it. That would be, if that happened, that would be great. If we had everyone in the room, because they could say, yes, that can happen. We can go as deep as we want to go. So, but I don't want to sort of over promise, depending on who's in the room and how we're going to operate. But we certainly can get down to it. But in that case, the participation of the department heads is really important if they are actually going to implement some of the tactics. I mean, the Board of Selectmen will certainly implement some of those tactics, the tactical part, but so will the department heads. And their input and their involvement is very important to this. So initially, to your question, we were going to work off these strategic priorities and the initiatives identified at that retreat, and that the second part of that is the tactical part, working with Lincoln and the department heads to really put, very specific action activities to make those things happen.
So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the department heads are there, that the chair people or members, if they want to go, of the different committees and boards are there. We need to make sure that those people are there, that there aren't a lot of people that are taking Saturday off. I mean, this is an important day. Just make sure they're there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to the point that the right people in the room to agree and on what's going to happen.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So on the school committee, Hanson members of the school committee question, I do think that it's important that what comes out of this brainstorm session should be coming from Whitman residents and Whitman town employees, just for the credibility of this strategic plan. But it's probably worth inviting at least the chairman, who is a Hanson resident of the school committee, to maybe be an audience member there to bounce questions off of, or to justify the school's strategic plan when we get to that point.
Well, and then I would also say, like, let's say we only get 5 or 6 town members at large. Are they really providing the snapshot for what the town wants?
Or what they want.
Yeah, what they want, right. I mean, I think, and this is why personally I've disagreed with having just kind of put out, an open casting call for this. I think we have we know the people that are going to implement whatever plan we come up with. If the success of this plan is dependent on buy-in and a shared vision, then the most important people of doing that are the other department heads and the chairs
people
of
that
our
implement
boards.
that vision. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I think I think it would make for a more productive, efficient meeting, personally. But
Paul, I have one other thought. The schools, don't you think when each year the school puts together a plan for their school year, and I think they also put together a future plan of what they've always wanted, all-day kindergarten. There's all certain things that they want to get accomplished. So basically, they have already I want to know if it's 5 years, but a plan, a strategic plan to run the school system. The whole idea is that when they come up with the plan and what's best for the students of Whitman and Hanson, then they come before the towns to see if the towns will back them on their plan financially. If the towns can't back their plan financially, then they have to back off their plan and eliminate some certain things because they still have a school to run with the basics. So, in my mind, the schools already have a strategic plan in place on a regular basis. It may be 1 or 2 years out, but I'm certainly sure the superintendents and principals have a lot more future plans, further out. But it's what the towns, each town can afford to implement their plan for the school system.
well, I know they have if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I know they have a plan, Dan, but I think in all fairness to everyone, whose ever plan it would be, and I'll use them as an example, it couldn't be that Chief Clancy needs a new fire truck in May, and the school needs languages in May, and
One offsets the,
I think the plan is coming up with how we can see growth and development in a manner that the taxpayers, through what they've told us, through the survey and information we've gathered, makes it all work.
Yep.
And that, I think, requires that shared vision, but I also think it's a conversation that we've kind of had to put off for a while now. And that's what I was hoping, that this would kind of be more that, I guess, the decision makers / stakeholders would finally be able to get in that room and say, look, these are the problems we're having. This is what's causing the butting heads. This is what isn't working. And, and give everybody a voice to say, well, I'm frustrated with this and I'm frustrated with that. And that's why I say, I think with a lot of public interaction, what I would be afraid of is you have a group that, is not going to be as open as they would if it was just, our department heads, really trying to get together and hash things out, which they've done before. And I know that the school should definitely be included in that. And like I said, with Whitman only being one half of that puzzle piece, that's, Justin's right, this is a Whitman strategic plan, but if it's going to be a workable plan, then it also involves a partner community. And that's it. I'm done. I won't take up any more time.
You've had a lot to chew on. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I would suggest that it's up to the board to decide who should be at that meeting. Randy makes some excellent points, and that I don't see that what you're describing being like exclusive of this, what's going to happen on that Saturday. So, and knowing that as I see that that's an example of a strategic priority in how we phrase that and how we think about it. And it's not going to be solved on Saturday, but if it's something that is critically important for the town and the school district to work out, that's a strategic priority. And we don't have a name for it yet, but that conversation begins on that Saturday. So I'm use that as an example.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I restate what I think I heard about the consensus from the board to make sure that the right people are invited? Board of Selectmen, the Whitman School Committee members, the chair of the school committee, the chairs of all the various boards, committees, commissions in town, and department heads. Possibly or possibly not including several, self-identified members of the public. Is that a correct consensus of the board?
Yeah, I think.
I guess the key is the question about the self-identified members of the public and the Hanson members of the school committee. And I guess I'm not entirely sure what the consensus is on those two groups.
So on the Hanson members, I think it would be useful to invite as a observer Chris Howard and maybe even Matt Dyer, just to get the Hanson side of the buy-in, Matt being the chairman of their Board of Selectmen, and Chris Howard being the chairman of the school committee. Because it is probably not to have them in on the session developing our goals, but to just be there as a gut check. Is this doable within your plans? And on members of the public, Mr. Chairman, it might be worthwhile to maybe for you to address a letter to the Whitman and Hanson Express, informing them about this. And
Well, I think that's something for Lincoln to do.
it could be a Lincoln thing too.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Yeah, like I said, we've heard from some folks, and we'll get the word out.
Yeah, and I don't think what we're trying to do is to encourage a whole lot of people who are not department heads or committee chairs or selectmen or school committee to come. But we ought to leave it open for someone who's shown an interest to show up.
And I think there's a key point here too, which is this is a public meeting, so anyone can attend. I think the key is just the question about who's participating actively in the small groups and who isn't. That's the point, right? But anybody can attend and observe, of course.
Are you clear there?
Yes.
So how many? And
So
if people, I personally, I think you're right, Dan. You're going to get members of the public that are going to come up and
Self-interest.
Self-interest. I still argue that this should, if you look at the definition of a strategic plan, and I had it here on my phone, but now I'm going to, it really, it talks about, it's policy setting. You're basically developing policy, and thus should be the creators of that should be the policy setters and the ones that directly carry out the policy. For me, that's what I think. I don't need to cater to people that think they should be involved with this because their role, they're not entitled to be in. And that's what we're going to get. So
that's kind of a dim view of the public. That I don't.
No, but I know some of the people that.
No, it is. It is a dim view of the public. That's what both of you guys are saying. You're saying that you don't want self-interested people to show up and monopolize the conversation. And I'm not.
No,
I don't think I want.
I think we've
I don't want
allowed
to
that.
assume that's going to happen.
When do you move beyond that?
Beyond what?
Beyond the fact gathering. I think we've already done that.
Yeah, we did it 3 years ago. But.
Mr. Chairman?
And I'm not saying that.
And we
I'm not saying
got a lot of buy-in
drives it.
from that. I don't need 5 or 6 people now to, in self-interest, to have such a weighted vision. Are you really getting a public vision?
How could it be a weighted vision if there's 5 or 6 people? and
If
there's
you
about
have 5 or
40
6
and there's about
people now
40 other
in with
people.
the developing policy for the town.
You know,
Right.
if I were in charge of a school, college, let's say, and we were having strategic planning, a meeting like this, I wouldn't necessarily think that if you invited some students to that meeting that could participate in the meeting, do more than just observe, but to participate in the meeting, to let those people who are running the school know what their interests are. I'm not sure that's a bad thing, and I think you would want to ask for that. I think you want them to be there. That doesn't mean there should be 100 people there. And probably the people that you would get, the people you would go out to look for would be the people who have been elected to the school government. You know, you go there. You go to those kind of people. I just
would
don't
say
see
if we were looking at it as a school, we've already asked the students to participate by the survey. And we got 6, and why I like the survey is because we got a broad range of varying opinions on that. What I'm worried about is you now involve people that may have that guy was only there because he was pro-police. And that's why the police, and they stacked it with pro-police, or they stacked it with pro-fire or pro-school. And
that sounds like a town meeting to me.
But we I thought, got a great response with the survey. And, it was a large demographic. And now to just handpick 5 or 6 people to be part of this.
I don't think we're hand-picking people, though, Randy. I think if people show an interest and they'd like to show up, they're self-identifying, they're letting Lincoln know.
See what happens.
That they'd like to show up.
Again, how many people are we going to allow?
I don't think you can say you can allow anybody. You allow as many as want to come. It's an open meeting, right?
Well, to participate.
Well, as long as they're not repeating the same things over and over again.
You can't limit their conversation.
Well, I guess that's what we run in the meeting.
I used to facilitate brainstorm sessions at a biofuel company, and especially the morning session seems awfully similar to what I was trying to construct there. And I found that my best input, it was a lot of engineers, biologists, biochemists, all in the same room. And then when we started inviting the finance people and HR, you got some of the most interesting conversations started. So I do think that members of the public who may not be living this every day might bring something valuable to the table, particularly when we're trying to articulate what the town's core values are. But yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thought. If the people identify themselves as being interested in this kind of a meeting, perhaps we invite them to the morning session when we're dealing when they're dealing with vision, values, and the other thing. Yeah, and then in the afternoon, which I see as a tactical thing, is the people who are actually doing the work and who have to work together in order to accomplish the vision and the goals. They work in the afternoon. Without that other input.
Yep.
They get the input. We get the input from them first. And it's not like the way I envision the room. It's a few tables. It's a bunch of tables with 6 or 7 people at a table or whatever, or 8 people at a table. And when you've had that experience, they're all doing their own thing. It's not where, and if the people that decide they want to come are spread around at those tables, they're not monopolizing the conversation or pushing their agendas. They're part of a group that has other people involved too. I'm not afraid of it, to tell you the truth. But I think maybe having them having that participation be available in the morning would be a good idea. And maybe not having it available in the afternoon satisfies what Randy and Dan are afraid of.
I'm not afraid of anything. I mean, I will sit.
Concerned about.
I will sit and talk to anyone and hear their point, but are we going to actually eventually produce something?
Right.
Is the only thing I'm afraid of, is that we go through this process and there is no plan. But we know 6 people want good schools, good education, good fire department, good police. I mean, that's what I'm afraid of, is come January 1, a budget season, that there's no definitive plan in place that I think we've talked about for quite a long time now. Unfortunately got derailed by, obviously, the pandemic, but I know it's something that I definitely want in place as when we get into the budget season.
I think I trust I trust Dan to be able to get us through that day and have it be as productive as you'd like it to be, Randy, at the end.
Yeah.
She's had that experience.
I would just like to if I can, reassure you that I absolutely hear what you're saying. And my job as a facilitator of a process is to have agreement and alignment of how that day is going to end, and to manage those expectations. And sometimes what happens in meetings is we might, as I said, life happens, and we might take a different direction, and it's up to that group and that group to sort of say, we're going to readjust things to make sure we get to that finish line. But that's an important. I always go through the day, and I know what the outcome you're looking for, and we're going to work really hard to get there. I also just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that the suggestion of having public participation on developing mission and vision, I think and guiding principles, I think is a good one, because I think that is an opportunity to engage a discussion with people who live in Whitman, and that mission and vision speaks to people. So that would be a perfect time to have that kind of engagement. And then have more of a tactical second half of the day.
Fine. Thank you. Anybody else? Have we wrung as much as we can out of this?
Do you have an answer, Lincoln?
I believe the answer is encouraging members of the public to participate, and having about 5, with a target of about 5 folks to participate in the morning session regarding mission, and not necessarily not participating in the afternoon session, but of course being there as observers. Do I judge the sense of the board correctly?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for guiding us through that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item on the agenda is town park security cameras.
So this is just a brief update. As folks may have seen from the Express a week and a half ago, there was an error in the headline where it said the board okayed security cameras for the park. That's, of course, not the case. It was under discussion. There was a correction in last Thursday's paper, but I just wanted to say that out loud for folks who may have missed that. And obviously, if there's any further information that members of the board or the public would like to know in preparation for that decision about whether or not it should be on the capital improvement plan. That capital improvement plan, we're getting towards having it, and so it'd be great just to have that input at an upcoming meeting or today in the near future about whether or not the board would like that on the capital improvement plan or not.
Anybody?
Huh?
You're asking for an opinion, right?
Tonight or at the next meeting, I think would be helpful as we're doing that capital planning process.
Does anyone have any input tonight?
Yeah, I would like to see it on the capital plan. I mean, I don't know if the rest of the board feels, but I think it's very important that we put that on there for the future safety of the park and for the people in the park and for the equipment in the park. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind. Do you want me to make a motion that we would like to see that placed on the capital plan and see if the capital committee agrees with us?
If you'd like to do that, that'd be fine.
I'll make that motion that we put into the capital plan an article for, or an item for cameras and security cameras in our town park.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Yeah, discussion.
I would say, not that I completely disagreed or agree with cameras in the park at the time, but I think this speaks to a bigger picture of how this process needs to go, especially with everything that happened on social media and, I think how I would have liked to have seen this happen, if a board decides on an issue amongst themselves, I think that board should come and ask to present to us so we have all the facts that they have made. I mean, I guess this was heavily talked about and voted at a DPW commissioners meeting. Well, they obviously got the ball rolling, and they haven't really come to us and made a presentation about why they want cameras in the park at this point.
Would you like to amend your motion, Dan, and make a motion to invite the
Yes, I'll
representatives of the DPW?
amend my motion to invite the members of the DPW commissioners to come before us and give us their views and their feelings on cameras in the park, and if they ask us to put that forth to the capital plan, then I think we'll make a motion at that time.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, and not picking on the DPW, but really with anything, before we get a lot of department head wheels spinning, if any committee decides that within that they need further things going on, I think it should come to us just so we have all the information of why it's requested before it gets on social media and there's 250 posts that we've approved something that we didn't.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
I still don't know really. I know
inviting a
there was one.
representative of the DPW to come before us with a.
I mean, I know there was one.
We're not having a joint meeting. I don't think that's necessary.
The chairman.
Yeah, or even just Bruce to come up.
Yeah,
And
right.
I mean, I know there was one pretty bad incident, obviously. But I just don't want to have knee-jerk reactions if it's, I think I don't think it's really great for us to be, kind of setting policy by social media complaints.
No, not at all.
I agree with Randy.
Okay, so we don't need a motion really. Why don't you just invite?
I'll invite
We'll
Bruce.
put it on the agenda. Invite the DPW, somebody from the DPW to
Correct.
make a recommendation.
I'll invite Bruce and/or Kevin Cleary, the chair of the DPW, to attend.
The chief of police ought to be involved in that recommendation as well, I would think. No?
Sir.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, new business. Act on the resignation of Wayne Carroll from the Board of Public Works Commissioners effective September 30th, 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
We're going to go back to, they're going to get some people that are interested in it. They're going to come before both boards, and we'll pick somebody to take that position until
That's
but that position till the following year, right?
right. That's how you'd fill it, would be having
Process,
that
yeah.
roll call vote between the remaining between this board and the remaining members. I know there are a few names that have been out there, and I'll have further contact with the DPW to find out, DPW commissioners to find out if they're intending to come forward with someone or not.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? Yep.
Well, and I would just add, just thank Wayne for his service. He's been on that board for a long time, and he's also done a heck of a lot of good through Whitman.
We'll accept the amended
with
to accept the
regret.
resignation with regret.
Absolutely.
Regret-
I'll
regret
take
and
that.
praise.
Since I've known Wayne since he was a little kid.
Yeah, and thank him for everything. I know he's moved out of town, but thank him for everything. He was involved in football when I was a kid, I think, so.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Act on the recommendation of the Bylaws Study Committee to appoint Scott Lambiase as a member of said committee for a one-year term through June 30th, 2022, in order to fill an existing vacancy.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Just a quick question on that. Lincoln, what was the vote of the bylaw study committee? Was that a unanimous
It was
recommendation?
indeed unanimous, yes.
Okay.
Seeing no questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 3, announce the Recreation Commission non-voting member vacancy.
Yes, so there are, I think there's a desire to sort of beef up some of the folks who are participating in Recreation Commission meetings and activities, in planning. So there is currently officially one vacancy for non-voting members and a soon-to-be official second vacancy. So I think we just wanted to get the word out there and let folks know that, there's certainly a desire to have more and perhaps newer folks participating with the Recreation Commission.
Okay. Next item, to act on the request of Amy Toner on behalf of the Brockton Symphony Orchestra for permission to use the Town Hall Auditorium on Saturday, November 7th, 2021, in order to conduct a free concert. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
That's great.
Okay, now there's some complications here.
There
Lincoln.
is. There is. So I spoke over the weekend. I spoke with Susan Kaplan, who's the Brockton Symphony Orchestra chair, on Saturday, and the long and the short of it is, the complication is this: they were planning to have a clarinet group and a brass group come and do this concert on November 7th. Both groups are comfortable, apparently, with having a vaccination recommendation, which, of course, as anybody will see from the website, from the sign out front, we do have that recommendation from the Board of Health out there. The clarinet group, though, would not want to perform without a mask mandate at this concert. Rather than a mask recommendation, which, of course, again, we have that mask recommendation out there on the doors, et cetera. So I see two
Are they
options.
asking for people to be vaccinated as well?
I'm sorry.
Are they asking for people to be vaccinated as well?
They are. They are. And that's something that the Board of Health has done and that we have advertised out there on, on the website, on the signboard out front, that recommendation.
Are they using vaccination status as a admissions requirement? Didn't I see something in there?
They originally were hoping for that, and then in speaking with the chair, Susan Kaplan, on Saturday, she spoke with some of the more of the musicians and said that both groups were fine with a recommendation for vaccination and not a mandate, but the clarinet group would like, in order to perform, they want a mask mandate.
Not proof of vaccination.
They sort of
just to
pull back on the vaccination mandate.
And they asking for social distancing as well?
Absolutely, yeah, and we'd certainly have it set up as socially distanced, regardless. So it seems to me that the board has a relatively simple decision in front of us, either having that mask mandate for this concert or choosing not to have the clarinet group and having the brass group perform the whole concert.
I have a quick question. I assume the Brockton Symphony Orchestra or the participating groups would be enforcing this mandate on their own and not requesting town resources to do that?
She said that they would.
Okay.
I think that's I'm not sure. I tried to impress on her that that might be a difficult thing for them to enforce, but she said that they would.
I get this straight. They want anyone that's going to, the audience to be masked,
That is correct.
but they don't have to be, because they can't play the clarinet with a mask on.
Right.
So it's okay for them to be there unmasked, but the crowd has to have wear masks.
That is correct for the clarinet group, correct. There is such a thing as apparently as a musician's mask. I'm not sure technically how that works. I think it provides some protection, but I'm not fully clear on what exactly that does.
Well, it's their free concert. I don't.
It's their concert. It's their. They've already bent their rules because they have a policy at the Brockton Symphony that when they perform, there has to be proof of vaccination, there has to be social distancing, and there has to be mask wearing. But it sounds like in Lincoln's talking to them, they've relaxed that, except for the one group that would like to have the clarinets, who would like to have all of the participants masked. And so that's what we would be. So what are we voting exactly? We've already put on the table that we approve this concert. But are we approving this concert with their requirements? That's the choice. Are we going to approve this concert with their requirements, or are we going to not approve the concert? That would seem to be the choice. Right?
Not approve the concert as originally intended. So I'd suggest, you could take a vote on whether or not to have a mask mandate for this concert, and if not, the concert can still go forward, but it wouldn't have a clarinet component.
Does that mean it would be a half an hour concert instead of an hour concert?
She said it would be a full hour of brass. Get ready for the brass.
But no wind instruments, huh?
No wind instruments.
Oh, okay.
I will make a motion to approve the brass concert.
A concert with just brass. We have a motion. Well, actually, we have a motion already.
I think that might be an amended motion. I mean,
Okay.
so right?
All right, sure.
You have a motion to approve the concert, but there's this other second issue to decide.
But only with brass, because the clarinet people won't come without the audience being masked.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay. Discussion.
My discussion is, if we did that, if we, on this here, if we had both, and we say masks are required, and we have 20 people show up at the concert because the 200 that we normally get don't want to wear masks and sit there and wear masks, then it doesn't, I mean, this is here to entertain the people of Whitman or whoever wants to go. And us approving Randy's request kills half the show. But I understand where Randy's going, because if I have to wear a mask and both the brass and the wind are going to be there, I will not be there. My wife may be, but I won't be. And I'm sure, and I imagine there'll be other people like me that won't be there, because I can't enjoy sitting there listening to music wearing a mask. Just me. I've already got my shots. I feel healthy. But that's my feeling.
I'm going to say my motion has nothing, well, I appreciate Dan's statements, has nothing to do with me personally. It is just following the position this board's taken about mandating masks in this building already. And having a brass instrument concert falls in line with that.
I'm just thinking about so this is a free concert made possible by a grant from the Whitman Cultural Council.
Correct.
So state money, essentially.
Correct.
paying for this concert, and the risk of adding a mask mandate is that the free concert may not be as well attended. I don't really have a problem approving a free concert where their own risk is that they get fewer people than they expect.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of approving November 7th for a concert with only brass playing at it? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so we didn't approve the concert.
Can I make a motion to approve the full concert with the mandate as requested?
Yes, you may. Is there a second?
Oh, might as well, second.
What? Were you in a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. So now it's the original motion, and we would be accepting the requirements of the Brockton Symphony Orchestra to have the audience masked. That's what they asked.
It is.
That's what they asked in order to give the free concert with both brass and clarinets. Any discussion?
Just again, so long as they don't request the Whitman Police enforce this requirement for them, then
All those in favor?
Wanna go out?
Okay. All those opposed? So it's been approved. It's been approved with the way that the Brockton Symphony wanted it. The next item on the agenda is to act on the request of David Doyle, doing business as Cowbell's Cafe, to sell alcoholic beverages beginning at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Is there a second?
second.
Okay. Any discussion?
This is just amending their previous license?
Correct.
Okay.
Brings it closer.
Okay. Discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Set the FY22 trash rate.
Yes. So, done some intensive work with Highway and Park Superintendent Bruce Martin in looking at what our expected needs are as far as how much hauling away the town's trash and recycling will cost this year, how much it's likely to cost. There are some pretty significant variables because of the complete variability of the recycling market, the international recycling market, and that's really sort of been all over the map. But we did some modeling, looking at past usage and past costs. The key question is how much we pay per ton to haul away our solid waste or non-recycling, and then we pay a variable rate to haul away our recycling, and that's the recycling rate per ton, which really shifts dramatically throughout the year. But we looked at that, looked at some history, took an average there, and then the other key component of the total cost is the per cost per unit per our 4,622 units, the haulage cost. In looking at all of that, he and I both feel comfortable that for this year, in fiscal year 22, that the per unit rate can stay at $285. We're cautiously optimistic that should be fine. There's still some wiggle room there with looking at the historical recent recycling costs, and then also to continue to have the $25 senior citizen discount that's historically been in town. So obviously happy to answer any questions about how we got to that rate. If the board chooses to approve this annual rate with the senior citizen discount, our treasurer collector, Mary Beth Carter, would intend to issue those bills at the beginning of November. And similarly to in years past, there would be a 75-day due date to give folks a little more time and into January to pay it in full. So that's where we're at.
I'll make that motion.
There's a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, question, is this just a one-year contract?
So this is the rate, not the contract, that the board would be approving. Right now, we do in fact have a one-year contract, we look at that, but what the board would be doing here is the rate, not the contract per se.
Okay, but isn't the rate part of the contract?
So, yes, so the contract lays out, again, the variable is how much recycling costs per ton to haul off. And so that's a variable rate based on the industry in the contract. Just to give you a sense of how much it's shifted, in the last year, at times it's been $90 per ton, and at times it's been $2 per ton. So it's really varying all over the place. But the contract dictates how much we pay, but the contract varies depending on where the industry is at a particular time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? All those in favor of the trash fee? The next item on the agenda, Dan and Amy Desmond, discussion with respect to the installation of utility poles is going to be tabled. And the last item on the agenda under new business is the Assistant Town Administrator's job description. We received a copy of the job description last week. Anyone have any additions, questions?
Let's see.
I talked to Lincoln before the meeting about one thing, and that was the designation of a parking clerk.
That's what I was going to talk, right.
And actually, we have had a parking clerk that isn't the assistant town administrator for the last 11 years. And so we agreed that he would amend his job description, and that the assistant town administrator could serve as an assistant parking clerk.
Right.
So that when Laurie, who does that job, if she's not here, then the assistant town administrator would be.
Right. Yeah, because my main concern when I read that is the fact that sometimes the assistant town administrator would be out at a meeting or something, but Laurie's in that office all the time. And if somebody wants to come in and pay it, she's there. And there's no fine to that person because there's nobody there. So.
And she's also done it.
A great job.
That was a. Yeah, it was in the last job description that she was the assistant town administrator at the time was the parking clerk, but that really wasn't the case. I think it was kind of sloppy paperwork on our part. So there's that. There was some questions about. No. I don't have any more questions about the job description. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add, change, delete? Okay, seeing none. Well, we said we were going to vote on it, so why don't we vote on it? All those, someone make a motion.
I'll make that motion that we,
Second.
With that change.
same thing with the adjustment of the parking clerk.
Is there a second?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next step would be for you to put together a posting with the salary range. So we need to establish the salary range for the posting. Do you have a?
I do have a recommendation.
Okay.
Which would be $90,000 to $105,000.
Okay.
If the board may recall, the last assistant town administrator was at $90,100, $104 annually, and town meeting did approve sufficient funds for $105,000 annually. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so your work is clear. The next item to deal with this would be,
So when are we going to post that immediately?
That's what I'd like to do.
Okay.
I would intend to post it on the Massachusetts Municipal Association website. Make sure it gets out on some of the trade associations, there's an assistant town administrator, professional group, but make sure it gets out to some of those groups. And obviously on the town's website. And I'd actually like to have it on Indeed as well. I think you get a lot more applications, and it is a little more work going through them, but I think you get some outside the box folks and through that process who may not necessarily be thinking directly about where to go to find a municipal job.
Good. And then the next part of the process would have a subcommittee that consists of Lincoln, and I'd like to be on that subcommittee, and I could use one other person.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be interested in serving on that if nobody else is.
Justin. So that'll be a subcommittee. We'll go through all those applications. We'll winnow it down to a smaller group.
Probably 3.
Well, maybe 3 to 5.
3 to 5, okay.
Yeah, 3 to 5 semi-finalists. Would have them in for interviews with the group, and then we would then re-interview 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
Depending upon how they came across. So that at least the people that the person that we hires will have been interviewed by the whole board twice.
Yeah. Good.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a path there. Town Administrator's report, COVID-19 update.
Yes. So, as the board knows, the Chief Clancy's been giving great updates, weekly updates as to where we're at. With COVID-19, we have had for 2 weeks our positivity rate drop down from 4.26% in the 2 weeks prior to, well, let me say it in a different way, 4.26% down to 3.54%, and then down to 2.97% this past Thursday, in the 2 weeks prior to this past Thursday. So that's certainly positive news. We do have another slight uptick up to this past Thursday in our vaccination rates townwide. It's certainly a very slight uptick, but there are folks, across all different age categories who are choosing to go out and become fully vaccinated. So that is upticking slightly.
Do you have a percentage?
We are now at 58%.
5.8?
5.8, correct. Fully vaccinated of those from 12 to
right.
115, whatever. Right.
Really, 115?
However old we have someone in town. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think it's 112, actually, is our oldest resident. I believe so.
The Historical Commission gives out that cane.
I'll do that cane sometimes.
Yep.
So that's where we are as far as positivity and vaccination rates. The board, as the board recalls, last week, the Board of Health, 2 weeks ago, the Board of Health had taken a vote to recommend having capacity limits in this room and the basement meeting room during meetings. The board received that letter. I think everyone had a chance to review it back from the Board of Health chair, explaining their thoughts a little bit more on that. They're due to meet again on October 26th to further discuss that.
And I think they invited us to the meeting if we wanted to show up.
They did. If any members would like to go.
9:30 in the morning?
It is. And I'm happy to be there, but obviously, yes, as you said, Mr. Chairman, they also invited the members of the board.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it for COVID-19 for me. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is to announce the receipt of the state grant for an irrigation system at the town park, Upper Field.
Yes. So this is a piece of great news. As the board may recall, our state legislative delegation had asked for some requests to be included in the fiscal year 2022 state budget. This was one of those requests after going out and polling department heads about what they might like to see in there, and it made it through the House. And certainly we appreciate the leadership from from Representative Sullivan and Senator Brady in having it in the final version, and the State Department of Conservation and Recreation actually reached out to me last week, and it will be getting the funds very shortly. So great news, and we appreciate their work on that.
Thank you. We need to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second? Voice votes.
Yes.
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 Yes. And we'll be coming back into open session only to adjourn.